Good morning. We'll call the June 14th Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you'd join us for the pledge in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is open forum. Because we have meetings following this, we will today hold these to 3-minute time limit. So we'll call Sonia Slack first.
I better get right to it then. Election integrity continues to be your most important responsibility. I hope you're all doing your best to keep up with the flood of information that's being revealed all over the country in regards to electronic voting equipment. On Sunday, June 5th, I emailed each of you a letter letting you know I'd be speaking today. I included 3 links for you to review. I trust everyone took the time to look them over. Professor Alex Halderman of the University of Michigan is the director of the Center for Computer Security and Engineering. He was commissioned in 2019 to write a report regarding the security of voting equipment in Georgia. His report has been submitted as part of the record in a Georgia lawsuit, but the judge has it sealed. Parts of the Halderman report was leaked a couple weeks ago as expected. It was rumored to be so. CISA quickly issued an advisory on Friday, June 3rd to get ahead of the release. CISA reports 9 serious vulnerabilities that are very technical and alarming. I hope you read them carefully. I don't have the time here to list them, but you should have already read the report. Item 2.4 of the advisory names Alex Halderman as the researcher. They do not admit his report was submitted in 2019. They say in item 3 it is recommended you contact Dominion to look into this. Do you really believe Dominion and CISA were unaware of these problems? They also recommend conducting, quote, rigorous post-election tabulation audits, close quote, of physical ballots. I believe they are conducting a CYA campaign. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on you, the county board. With great power comes great responsibility. Everyone around you is interested in CYA. I hope you're taking all this seriously. CISA reports the machines can be leveraged by an attacker to gain elevated privileges or install malicious code. ImageCast also allows for remote rebooting into Android safe mode, which would allow an attacker to directly access the operating system without your knowledge. The other 2 links I sent you were Alex Halderman speaking about this in November 2019 and also in the fall of 2018. No business owner would purchase a system that has so many known vulnerabilities. A tabulator is a computer. Computers compute according to their programming. In December 2020, possible foreign hackers broke into FireEye, a major cybersecurity firm that monitors government agency sites and global companies. The government admits hackers had access for months before detection. I'm sure you remember reports of SolarWinds, Departments of Treasury, Commerce, and Homeland Security being a part of this breach. Our county IT people, while I'm sure they are competent, are surely in over their heads. It is literally impossible for you to guarantee the county's voting results are accurate when Dominion or any other computer spits out numbers. The county paid over $400,000 for the computers and $40,000 to maintain each year.
All right, thank you. Next, Rick Felt.
My name is Rick Felt from Brainerd, Minnesota. This is a Bible and this is a Constitution. I've learned a lot through the last 9 months that I've been attending these meetings, and I found that this entire board is biblically and constitutionally illiterate. I am hereby following requesting the following information. Number one, the individual cost of all 5 roundabouts approved for new construction. Number two, the individual cost of all 5 signal systems for the same location of the roundabouts. And number three, the fatalities at all 5 locations where the roundabouts are being built. Respectfully submitted on June 14, 2022 by Ricky K. Felt, signed by me. And the reason that I stand behind this is that, and I said it again, and Paul Curran disagreed with me, but I am telling you that without these 3 pieces of information, you are fiscally irresponsibility. And you are not serving the people of Crow Wing County by not looking at all 3 of these aspects. And just to go further, with further overreach of the government in today's society, when you apply for a roofing permit, and if you live out in the country, you have to have your septic system tested first before they'll even consider giving you a permit. I feel that that's government overreach.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Felt,
And then-
we don't issue permits for roofing.
But if you have to get a permit, you have to have, in certain areas, you have to have your septic system. And I can give you, Highway 18 collision just went through it. They had to have their septic system inspected just to add an addition, and they didn't add any plumbing or any extra employees, but they had to have their septic system approved for that new addition.
Did they have to get a permit for roofing?
No, but they had to get a permit for a new addition, and they had to have their septic system inspected in order to do it. That's taking up my 3 minutes of time too, and I don't have that. But the problem is that I see is, like, even according to the Constitution here, and we're going to see this play out in November, the power, and this is by George Washington, a quote by him, the power under the Constitution will always be in the people. It is entrusted for certain defined purposes and for certain limited period to representatives of their own choosing, and whenever it is executed contrary to their interest or not agreeable to their wishes, their servants can and undoubtedly will be recalled. And even Commissioner Coring stated that he thought that 95% of the people in this county thought that they hated roundabouts. And I'm going to make that an issue for re-election. You can bet your money on it. Because when you go against the will of the people, and when you go against everything else, you are no longer a servant of the Constitution of the United States. And there's 4 really...
I hope you're not threatening me.
I'm not threatening you. This is not a threat.
Are you threatening him?
Your time is up.
So anyway, okay.
Next, Jeff Chesak. Jeff?
Good morning. I would just got a quick question, if you could clarify your meeting last Monday. Question was asked if the county board can essentially fire one of the employees of the sheriff's department or county attorney's office. And I listened to my recording. It was very difficult to hear. Is there a simple answer to that question? If it was in that recording, I've listened to it a couple of times, I can't get clarity on that. Would you be able to help me with that?
Don, would you
I don't think
care?
we believe it's clear either.
It wasn't clear to me, Jeff. And I don't know, I guess Mr. Scheffler sent a recording. I don't know if that was in closed session or if it was in regular session, but I asked the attorneys, I said, the only recourse we have is a vote of no confidence. So I was trying to search out what tools the board has. Don's elected and the sheriff are elected just like we are. So it's a different situation.
No, I understand
You know,
all that, but did we get clarity last?
I didn't get clarity.
Anybody?
The attorneys didn't give me clarity.
Did anybody get an answer to that? I don't think so.
I don't believe so, Jeff.
Okay,
It's a
thank
pretty
you.
gray area, uncharted.
Well, it's that implies that you don't have the authority to do that firing, and which leads me back to the open meeting law, which you went into closed sessions at least 3 times to discuss that purpose. If you don't have authority over that individual, you cannot go into closed session. So let's be clear on what we're doing. We heard you say we have to follow the law. The open meeting law is a law. It's not Jeff's law. I know you guys think, oh, well, it's open meeting law. Whatever. Okay, well, I'm telling you, you don't have a right to do it if you don't have the authority over the individual. So just keep that in mind. The other meeting I went to was March 14th. I walked in on an ARPA committee meeting. Mr. Haug and Mr. Brecken are part of that committee. 2 members, not a quorum, but Mr. Barrows was there. Now you have a county board meeting. No public notice was given for that. Again, you have to give public notice. That leads up to last Tuesday or Wednesday's emergency meeting. Tuesday, I'm sorry. You can't just call a meeting without giving the public notice, which is what you did. I mean, it's a 3-day notice. Couldn't you have waited till Thursday? It makes no sense to me. You have rules. We have to follow the law. I've heard that a few times from you now over the months. I know you call it an emergency. Look at the law. Mr. Hull knows it. Tornadoes, blizzards, all those things, you know, it's not in the law. And that's where we get back to, that's what I have a trouble with. It's silent. It's silent. The law is silent. So let's try to be open with the people. Let's not try and call an emergency. It's all political what you did. Housing and Human Resources has the ability
Time is
to
up,
increase
Jeff.
that funding they're not giving for minivan drivers.
Time is up.
You got to look at that before you start coming out, using it as a political tool to bring people back to say, we got to get the legislator in action. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I would like to, Mr. Chair, I'd like to address Mr. Chezok's point on the March 14th meeting in which there was an ARPA meeting that morning. I did not realize that. Everybody that deals with me knows that I show up anywhere from an hour or more before meetings because I like to be early. It was a mistake on my part. I didn't realize they were having that meeting that morning. I just happened to be in the room, and I did not leave the room, and I apologized for that because I do believe that the law is important to us, the open meeting law, and therefore it has not happened since, and it will not happen again, but I did make a mistake that day, and I apologize to my 2 commissioners and the staff for being in the room that day. But that was an accident that I will have rectified and will follow the law in the future.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
Commissioner Barrows, did I talk to you during that meeting?
No.
In fact, I did. I told you you can't participate.
Well, you did, yes.
You cannot participate because there were only 2 people there and Commissioner Barrows was not part of that. And so he was specifically told that he could not participate. He can sit in the audience, just like you guys can sit in the audience, but he can't participate. The meeting that you referred to with the recording was in open session of the county board. You guys were all here, sitting and watching the 2 attorneys have that conversation. That's why it was recorded. It was not in closed session, it was an open session. An emergency meeting of the county board, let me quote to you statute, subdivision 3 of the open meeting law. An emergency meeting is a special meeting.
Jeff,
An
enough.
emergency meeting is a meeting.
People think that it was in closed session I was referring to. It was last Monday.
Mr.
Personnel committee. I was
Chezok,
very clear.
will you show the courtesy that we have shown to
I
you?
don't want you to try and tell the people something I did not say.
Jeff,
Yes,
would you like to be removed?
fine. That makes you feel better.
It does.
Let me quote statute. An emergency meeting is a special meeting called because of circumstances that in the judgment of the public body require immediate consideration by the public body. There is no reference to tornadoes or storms or anything else. There was never a violation of the open meeting law.
Okay, we're going to move on. Marion Durham.
Hi, this is Marion B. Durham of 12921 Butternut Road. This concerns a problem we're having again. It's been a while. On 144, I have land on Section 10 Long Lake, and I was over there working over there. I usually use that road to go over to it. And the first day I went, the ditch was almost empty of water. In between that time and a week later, the ditch had filled up on 144. And information of the backup goes over to my driveway, which is on Thompson Road, Section 10, and it started running over on my lower part of my driveway. Then it concerns me, it has to be dug out again. If this was done when Mary Cope was on the county board, over 30 years ago, my husband was still alive, so it had to be before '96. and it was taken care of, but it's been like almost 30 years now since we've had it done. We'd like to have somebody in the next, county the next time frame get that dug out again. It'll probably take a couple of years to get everything all legalized and everything, and clean that 144 ditch. It goes way up into the 5 Mile Road north of 18, and it goes down through, I believe, Road 10 by Piers, if I remember right. It's been a while since I checked into it, but it has to be cleaned out if it starts running over the road. And like I say, it was up 2 on 144, and it gets scary when you see it starting to come towards you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marion, I just want to say the county engineer is right here, and he's gonna look into that. He's shaking his head yes, so we'll look into that for you.
Troy Scheffler.
Mr. Chair, would you give me permission to address Mr. Scheffler?
I sure would.
Okay. Mr. Scheffler, you have addressed this board in costume. We have listened to your verbal rants, and we have also, I've also read your emails. You've been name-called, you've made accusations, you've been demeaning and dehumanizing and mean. So the expectations now for in the future, and when you address the county board or when you address anybody that works for or associated with Crow Wing County, I would ask that you do that respectfully. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to respond to that, and it's not going to be on my time.
You don't
This is called the First
call the-
Amendment, sir, and I know during that whole flag fiasco, you tried to usurp the First Amendment by giving 18 minutes for a gentleman to whine about the First Amendment while he was exercising his First Amendment. Now, if you can't stand name-calling, I think you're in the wrong job, so it's probably good that you are resigning. So, on that note, can I start now?
You've started.
Okay, well, this meeting's definitely taken a turn. We got tattletales to misrepresenters, and
Mr. Chair,
I'll have to.
I'd like to request a recess.
Do we need a motion?
Mr. Chair, you can declare a recess whenever you wish.
All right. We will. Good. All right, we will reconvene. Please step forward. You got 2.5 minutes left.
No, I have 3 minutes, and you might want to talk to your county attorney about that, because we will be following up on it. Hopefully, Bill got his words in with the sheriff's department, make sure they have your back. Obviously, I'm astronomically pissed, so I'm just going to read this. Nice publicity stunt last week with the emergency press release, because that's what it was. Which interestingly, the only 2 people who spoke are the ones up for election this year, Barrows and Franzine. Obviously, you are all interested in getting them as much face time as possible. It's also interesting that you guys sat and blamed the state for the mess you guys created by encouraging Crow Wing to become a social service magnet. Now you guys are whining to the state about not getting free money to cover it all. I can't believe I'm in here talking about Facebook, of all things. Franzine, if you're going to slum around my Facebook page and accidentally send me a friend invite, have the spine to follow through with it. Also, for God's sake, stop going through my friends list, sending out invites to poach them. Why even bothering inviting people to your page when you haven't even posted jack on it for 12 years? You've been a commissioner. How you get elected as a conservative is beyond me. You're no conservative, you're myopic and cheap is all. Then Paul, you blocked my Facebook account. Why? Because you didn't want me finding out you were talking smack about me trying to bring awareness to the sexual harassment going on in the sheriff's office. It's interesting that you would act like you had no idea who I was or what I was doing dressing as a hooker when you spoke to me on the phone that very day at length. Then you continued by misleading other folks by liking their posts calling Christian groups conspiracy types. You all knew what was going on at the sheriff's department and just let it happen. You know why? Because you're going You're okay going out with porn stars and sending constituents like myself very uncomfortable texts trying to get me over to your house. It's no wonder stamping out sexual harassment is not a priority. If you're not publicly stating you don't care about our kids and veterans overdosing and dying on drugs because the problem conveniently works its way out, you're denouncing your own party the second you lose an election. You're a turncoat. How you get elected here as a conservative is beyond me. So being we're all conspiracy types, where is your chief deputy?
Your 3 minutes are up, Mr. Scheffler.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's right. He resigned.
3
because
minutes
that's not
are
much
up.
of a conspiracy theory. 2.5 minutes,
Sir,
bro.
I would suggest a recess.
You're up. Please have a seat. All right, there's a late one coming, Sherry. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Sherry Wiltsey, resident of Crow Wing County. I wanted to go back to the election integrity stuff. I truly believe that hand counts are the only credible option that we have. I hope that you are coming to realize this and agree to free and fair elections where we, the people, can actually see how the sausage is made instead of going back and forth with data requests. The people request data, you deny vital access. We want to see the proof of what goes on with the counting. It is unconscionable that this process is not transparent. All we want is to be able to trust the system. And it's a horrifying, it is horrifying that we are still here asking for what is constitutionally right. Even CISA now admits that we can't trust the system. We are out of options. You need to pass a resolution to go to hand counting of ballots now, before the primaries. Otero County in New Mexico just threw out the machines after their primary and can't certify their results. Be proactive, we ask of you. Save money and gain trust of the voters. It's a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the May 24th. Can we do this in one motion, Tim? And the June 7th?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Barrows. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Review today's agenda. Any additions?
Could I ask for a 5.2 to be voted on separately right after the consent agenda, please?
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved with
Motion by
changes.
Commissioner Franzine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Coring to accept today's agenda with the addition of moving 5.2 All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Franzine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
5.2.
Oh, 5.2, I'm sorry. Commissioner?
I'm just going to vote no on it.
Oh,
so.
okay. Is that a motion, or?
No, I'm not going to make the motion.
Okay. We just got to act on it?
We just got to have a motion on
Approve the
the motion.
personnel actions report would be in order.
I'll make the motion to approve the personnel actions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, motion by Commissioner Barrows,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Brecken. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, now, sorry about that. Land Services,
Mr. Chair, motion pass or fail?
motion passed.
Thank you.
There was just one no, right?
Yeah.
First one, okay.
Is that Brian? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So what we have today for your consideration is a potential land acquisition in the city of Emily. There's, if we could pull up the map on the big screen, there's 200 acres of private land. Oh, there you go. So everything with red fill on the map is private, blue is state, and everything else is county-managed, tax-forfeited land. The red outline property there, the subject property, is currently privately owned, and that landowner is interested in selling their property. We've reached an agreement with them through a partnership with the Soil and Water Conservation District, where the Soil and Water Conservation District would acquire that property with Lessard grant dollars and subsequently donate it to the county essentially for free. And so we discussed this proposal with the Natural Resource Advisory Committee meeting previously on January 5th, 2022, and they passed a motion in support. The city of Emily also supports the acquisition, the county's acquisition of the property, and there would be no trail restrictions whatsoever, so we can manage the property according to our forest and recreation plans. So.
Good. Any questions for Ryan?
I'll make the motion to approve the land acquisition with the Arns and Weber in the city of Emily.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Barrows.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Franzine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Moratorium.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Today, just wanted to bring forward and see if there wanted to be any discussion. We recently had a moratorium in the county stopping construction of boardwalks and wetland fill and things like that. And we also had an ordinance change for subdivision in the shoreland district that any subdivision will require a plat. Since then, we've received a few, concerned complaints, I guess you could say, from citizens. Just wondering if there was any appetite by the board or feeling that there maybe should be some changes or any tweaks to the current moratorium or ordinance.
Gary, I'll add, speaking for the moratorium, I think when we passed the moratorium, I think the purpose of that was to stop some of these very crazy boardwalks that zigzag throughout the lake and not considering the basic boardwalks for the individuals that just need something straight out from their property to get to the water level. And I think if there's language that we could revise, I don't know if we got language or if we could create language that would allow, just for the straight 4-foot wide boardwalks for people to have access to their lake. I'd like to entertain that. If
Well, Mr. Chair, too, I have had conversations with the DNR and with Growing Soil and Water. It still is the best way to cross the wetland is through using a boardwalk. So I definitely can see some accommodations that could be made so that we can take a look at that.
And Gary, I don't know, I think we still need to limit the boardwalks, how we differ the two from the mega boardwalks to the basic simple boardwalks, is, I think, we'd keep the moratorium for the mega.
If I could clarify, what I'm hearing is go back, work on some language to potentially adjust the moratorium, allowing the straight 4-foot wide, what the traditional, what people are thinking a boardwalk would be. Continue on with a study on the more permanently placed, multi-served kind of boardwalks that have been proposed earlier this year for the moratorium.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Chair. One of the concerns that I noted when we were discussing this previously was encroachment on the neighbor's property or their access to the lake. And so I want to make sure that that is continued and that we don't allow them to put a dock system out and then tee it off or elbow it off where it encroaches on somebody else's access to the lake. That was a problem that we've seen with some of these longer ones. So I don't know how we address the distance and how they build out the end of their dock system, because they all want a boat slip out there or multiple slips. And that's where we seem to run into the problems of encroaching on other people's access.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Barrows, we refer to them as riparian rights, and my understanding, while not an attorney, but with my experience, that your boundaries of your property, when it hits the water, they extend straight into the water, basically the center, let's say, of the lake. And so I think maybe what you're referring to is that a dock doesn't basically cross the property boundary out in the water, and we could definitely write that it doesn't impede on riparian rights.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The other issue would be the subdivision where it requires a plat in the shoreland district, and wanted to know if there was any appetite, if any modifications to the ordinance as written currently. There had been suggestions, maybe what was the real concern was riparian property or property on the water is what the main concern potentially was, maybe not in the whole of the shoreland district. We've had some that have wanted to split, but now with a plat, are forced a lot, thousands more in expense to chunk off a few acres, and they're, one or two tiers of housing between them and the water. So there's, the likelihood of the issues that we're trying to deal with for water quality isn't the same as if they are on the water. But just wanted to bring that to your attention and see if there is any anything you wanted to do with that.
Yeah, again, Gary, I think after we passed that, I think the intent again was to create the plat process for riparian lots, but we probably didn't consider the non-riparian that are still within the shoreland impact area. So my thought was to continue on as we had for the non-riparian lots, splits, and continue with the plat process for riparian only. And I'll I guess, let the fellow commissioners pipe in if they'd like. And
Mr. Chair, I'd kind of support you on that, too.
okay, so that would require then again another public comment period.
Yep, that's a ordinance change.
Yeah,
And if what I'm hearing is correct, Land Services will start that process and go through the normal course of business for that, which eventually you guys will, weigh in if you want the change or not in the end.
Okay. Back to the boardwalk. What is the timeline for that? I know we have, I've heard from some folks that are holding off on the closing of their property until we have this issue dialed in a little bit more. Is that something we could have the language and ready to adopt at the next meeting?
I don't believe so. I believe that also will need to run its regular course public notice to change the current moratorium, I believe, in consultation with our county administrator.
Mr. Chair, what I heard you say was you would like this brought back to the board as soon as possible.
Right.
And we will, Gary and
As soon
I
as we can,
and Don will put our heads together
okay.
to figure out how do we make sure, how fast we can go and make sure we meet our legal requirements. So I heard you say, I'd like to move fast.
Right. Is that any? Okay. All right.
Good to me.
Thank you, Gary. Next on our agenda, County Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. And Commissioner Barrows, I'm sorry I'm stealing one of your highlights each day, but pointing out something that's taking place in June that I'd really like to highlight is June is being recognized, among other things, as PTSD month, so post-traumatic stress disorder, which is has and will continue to be part of part of our law enforcement as a whole issue that we're dealing with. I'm very proud of the work that we've done with our mental health wellness for our employees with the Sheriff's Office, and I'd just like to take the opportunity to kind of highlight that we are going on the right road, and we need to continue down the path of bringing this as a topic and a reality of how we are and who we are, mental health as a whole. Not the hush-hush in the closet, hidden and being embarrassed about it. We really seek out our employees to help, and our peer support program has worked wonderfully. We have a couple instances that have actually took place where our staff have observed one of their coworkers and just approached them and say, hey, is something going on? And brought something to their attention that they didn't realize. And just try to make that normal, I guess. So my message I like to see is, I'm proud of the work that we're doing, and we are recognized that we have it on our intranet site on SharePoint, and just to highlight that it's something that we need to bring to the forefront and have open discussions about, and learn to accept it for what it is. And the people that we have that are dealing with mental health issues are as much of our community as those that are not, and just make it something normal to talk about and a conversation. So that was my goal, was just to bring it up as a conversation and a talking point that I hope our public continues to have. With that, any questions or comments, I'd certainly try to answer them as best I could.
Mr. Chair, if I might just add on to that, I know there's a big article in the Minneapolis paper today about the PTSD issue within law enforcement, and how, particularly in Minneapolis, but it's impacting our law enforcement group out here also, but how it's decimating the troops that are providing that public safety for the city of Minneapolis, but for all of us. And so it is a big issue that's out there. It's also has its downside, which is the cost that goes with taking care of our people, but they're really looking at trying to, how do we address that in the best way possible, which is cost effective and yet effective for the officer who may be struggling. So just I appreciate you bringing that up today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the sheriff? Thank you. County Attorney.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The only thing I have for you this morning is you'll notice that the Nelson Preserve cartway issue is not back before you today like you had scheduled it to come. I had received a request yesterday from both of the attorneys at the bequest of both of the parties, the main two parties, requesting that it be continued, that they nearly have it resolved. My understanding is that they're a private easement with the majority of the people that live along the road is in the process of being finalized, which just leaves Mr. Unger and the petitioner, and they wished to have an opportunity to meet with me, and they believe it could be resolved without you having to reconsider the location, of your own volition, and or what the damages would be. Rather than have everyone come here today to do that, with my anticipation that you would have approved it, given these circumstances, I said that we would pull it from the agenda and I'd explain it to the board, and if anybody had any questions, I could answer them. It just seemed to me that would have been the decision you would have made yourselves anyway.
Don, any idea on a timeline for this?
We could kick it off for 2 weeks. I do know that one of the attorneys has had some surgery and has a 3-week recovery period, so maybe if we just put it on the board's agenda for 2 weeks from now, and we'll see where it's at. If I need to request a little additional time, we'll coordinate with you, Mr. Chair, and with you, Mr. Hull.
Okay, thank you.
That's agreeable to the board.
That'll work. We're making some progress.
Hopefully this will come back on time and it'll be done by agreement.
Thank you. Anything else, Don?
No, I don't. Thank you.
County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yesterday we did not hold a senior management team meeting. We had too many people that were gone, so we kicked the meeting to a week from today. So I'll report on that at our next board meeting. You have a request for board action. In your packet to make an appointment to the Natural Resources Advisory Committee. This is to fill the unexpired term of Roger Roy's appointment, and so the interviews were held, and the interview committee is recommending Jeff Berg for the appointment to replace Roger Roy as an at-large rep on the Natural Resources Advisory Committee for the term expiring 1/31 of '23. He would be eligible for reappointment at that time.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Franzine and I were on the selection committee, and I just want to say publicly thanks to the people that did come in. It was hard to choose somebody because everybody had very qualified and just great people, and I wish we could have picked all three of them, but had to pick one. So we did make one selection, and that's what's before us today, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Is this a board or just chair? Okay.
Chair appointment.
I will go ahead and make that appointment.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions about that or anything related to county government.
Any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. We're on to additional business.
Yep.
And I do have something. And Commissioner Coring will appreciate this. June is National Dairy Month.
Oh, yes.
And I want to recognize the 4 dairies that operate in Crow Wing County: the Cornerstone Dairy, the Generic Dairy, the Coring Family Organic Dairy, and S&M Dairy for their efforts to provide us with great dairy products. So thank you very much to all of them.
You know what, I really appreciate that. When I was dairy farming, there was well over 100 dairy farms. Now there's 4 dairy farms. And I can remember when like 14 or 15, I used to ride on the milk truck with Al Kruger, and we'd go up and do a route up in Aiken. There is no dairy farms in Aiken anymore. So it's changed.
It's a dying
It has.
farm.
Thank you.
And I would like to just remind you, Commissioner Coring, that I'm the one commissioner that doesn't have any rural areas in his district, and yet I recognize those people for their efforts.
Okay. That's very kind of you.
Anything else? If not,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Franzine to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.